The champagne dripped from her hair, soaking into the collar of her grey uniform. Above her, the laughter was deafening. "You missed a spot, sweetie," the woman sneered, deliberately kicking the bucket of soapy water over the girl's knees. They thought she was nobody, just hired help. Invisible trash meant to scrub the floors they walked on. They ignored her presence, mocked her poverty, and plotted their dark secrets right in front of her face. But they made a fatal mistake. What the guests didn't know was that the $200 million super yacht beneath their feet didn't belong to the man they were waiting for. It belonged to the woman on her knees scrubbing the floor. And in exactly 2 hours, she wasn't just going to fire them. She was going to destroy them. The Mediterranean sun hung high over the harbor of Monaco, turning the water into a sheet of hammered sapphires. The marina was a parking lot for the 0.01%, a dense forest of masts, radar domes, and helicopter pads. But among the floating palaces, the obsidian pearl stood apart. 280 feet of jet-black hull and silver superstructure, it looked less like a boat and more like a predatory shark waiting to feed. Ella Sterling wiped the sweat from her forehead with the back of her wrist. Her hands, usually manicured and adorned with a simple gold band, were currently red and smelling of lemon detergent. "I told you, Maria, it's fine," Ella said, speaking into the small earpiece hidden by her messy bun. "Go lie down. If the nausea is that bad, you shouldn't be on your feet. I know how to polish a deck." "I am so sorry, Mrs. Sterling." The voice of the head stewardess crackled in her ear, thick with guilt. "The agency sent the replacement, but she is stuck at the border control. The guests..." Mr. Sterling said they arrive at 4:04 p.m. "It's 2:01 p.m. now," Ella soothed, scrubbing a stubborn spot of salt residue from the teak railing. She wore a spare grey uniform that was 2 sizes too big, bagging around her waist. She wore no makeup. Her iconic emerald eyes were hidden behind oversized, cheap sunglasses she'd found in the lost and found bin. "I find this relaxing, honestly. It clears my head before the merger talks. Just rest, Maria." Ella wasn't just the wife of Jacob Sterling, the tech and shipping magnate. She was the silent architect of his empire, a brilliant strategist who preferred the shadows to the spotlight. Today was supposed to be a celebration, the signing of the Cobalt deal. But fate, it seemed, had a sense of humor. She dipped her sponge into the bucket. The rhythmic scrubbing was meditative. Then, the sound of high heels clicking on the carbon fiber gangway shattered the peace. "My God," a shrill voice echoed. "It's bigger than I thought. Tacky color, though. Black? It screams nouveau riche villain, doesn't it?" Ella froze. They were early, 2 hours early. She kept her head down, turning her back slightly to the boarding area. She recognized that voice immediately. Vanessa DuPont, the daughter of a Parisian banking dynasty, a socialite known for 2 things: her impeccable fashion sense and her absolute venom toward anyone she deemed beneath her. She was also Jacob's ex-fiancée, a relationship that ended 5 years ago when she cheated on him with his brother. "Come now, Nessie," a male voice drawled. That would be Marcus Thorne, the CEO of the rival firm, North Star Logistics. He was the man Jacob was supposed to be partnering with. It screams power, something you're desperate to get back into. "Oh, shut up, Marcus," Vanessa laughed, the sound like breaking glass. "Jacob is still obsessed with me. Why else invite us to his private sanctuary? He wants to show off. He wants me to see what I missed. It's pathetic, really." Ella's grip on the sponge tightened until her knuckles turned white. "Obsessed with you?" she thought. "He invited you because your father controls the regulatory board we need for the shipping lanes." The footsteps stopped right behind Ella. "Excuse me," Vanessa said. Ella didn't turn initially. She was playing a dangerous game. If she turned around now, dressed in rags, scrubbing a floor. The humiliation would be legendary. Vanessa would feed on it for decades. "Did you hear? The great Ella Sterling cleans her own toilets." "Hey," Marcus barked, "the lady is speaking to you." Ella took a breath, composing her features into a mask of dull servitude. She adjusted the oversized sunglasses and turned, keeping her head bowed low. "Yes, madam," Ella whispered, affecting a slight accent. Vanessa towered over her, dressed in a white linen sundress that probably cost more than a mid-sized car. She held a glass of red wine. Where had she gotten that? The crew must have served them on the lower deck. "This gangway," Vanessa gestured with her free hand, looking at Ella with sheer disgust. "It's damp. I almost slipped. Is this how Jacob runs his ship? With incompetence? I am cleaning it now, madam. The sea spray." "I don't care about the sea spray," Vanessa snapped. She took a step closer, invading Ella's personal space. "I care about my Louboutins. Do you know how much these cost? More than you'll make in a lifetime of scrubbing, I'm sure." Marcus chuckled, lighting a cigar. "Easy, Nessie. Don't scare the help. She looks like a frightened rat." Ella bit the inside of her cheek. "A rat. Okay, Marcus. I'll remember that when we review the equity split." "I apologize," Ella mumbled. "I will dry it immediately." She reached for a chamois cloth. As she moved, her elbow bumped the bucket. It didn't spill, but the water sloshed loudly. Vanessa jumped back, as if a grenade had gone off. "You clumsy idiot!" she shrieked. "It didn't touch you," Ella said, her voice dropping an octave, the instinct to fight back bubbling up. "Don't you talk back to me," Vanessa hissed. Her eyes narrowed. She looked at the glass of expensive Bordeaux in her hand, then at Ella's kneeling form. A cruel smile played on her lips. "You missed a spot," Vanessa said softly. She tipped the glass. The dark red liquid cascaded down. It splashed over Ella's shoulder, soaking into the grey fabric of the uniform, staining the white collar blood red. It splattered onto the freshly cleaned teak wood. Ella gasped, the cold liquid shocking her skin. She looked up, her sunglasses slipping down her nose slightly. For a second, she thought Vanessa recognized her, but Vanessa was looking through her, not at her. To Vanessa, Ella was just furniture. "Oops," Vanessa giggled, covering her mouth with a perfectly manicured hand. "Now you really have something to clean. And make sure you get it out of the wood. Jacob hates stains." Marcus laughed, a deep, throaty sound. "Come on, Nessie, let's go find the bar. The service out here is terrible." They stepped around Ella as if she were a pile of trash. Vanessa's heel clipped Ella's shin, hard, but the socialite didn't even break stride. "Make sure that's spotless before the owner arrives," Marcus threw back over his shoulder. "He's bringing his wife. I hear she's an utter bore, but she's particular." "A bore and a prude," Vanessa agreed, her voice fading as they walked toward the main salon. "I give it 6 months before I'm back in the master cabin, and she's back in whatever trailer park he found her in." Ella remained on her knees as the automatic glass doors slid shut behind them. The wine dripped from her hair onto the deck. Slowly, Ella reached up and removed the cheap sunglasses. Her eyes were blazing with a cold, terrifying fire. "Trailer park," she whispered to herself, wiping a drop of wine from her cheek. She stood up. She could go downstairs, change into her Chanel suit, put on her diamonds, and march in there to fire them both. It would be satisfying. It would be quick. But as she looked at the red stain on the deck, a darker thought formed. They had arrived early to scheme. They thought the wife was a bore and a prude. They thought they were alone with the help. If she revealed herself now, she'd just be the angry wife. But if she stayed the maid, she would be the spy. Ella picked up the bucket. She wasn't going to change. Not yet. Ella moved through the service corridors of the Obsidian Pearl with the practiced ease of someone who had helped design the ship's layout. The crew quarters were soundproofed and separated from the guest areas, but the service doors were thin enough to hear through if you knew where to stand. She found Maria in the crew mess, looking pale and holding a ginger tea. "Mrs. Sterling!" Maria tried to stand, horror washing over her face as she saw the wine-soaked uniform. "Oh my God! Did you fall? Did you get hurt?" "Sit down, Maria," Ella commanded, gently but firmly. She grabbed a towel and began drying her hair. "I didn't fall. Our guests decided to christen me." "I will call security," Maria said, reaching for the wall phone. "Captain Henderson will throw them off the dock." "No," Ella stopped her hand. "No one throws them off. Not yet." "But madam, look at you." "Listen to me closely, Maria. Captain Henderson is to remain on the bridge. The rest of the crew is to stay in the lower quarters until I signal. I am taking over service for the afternoon." Maria's jaw dropped. "You? But Mr. Sterling will be furious if he sees you serving drinks to that witch." "Mr. Sterling isn't here yet," Ella said, checking her waterproof watch. "He lands at the helipad in 90 minutes. That gives me 90 minutes to find out why Marcus Thorne is so confident about this merger and why Vanessa DuPont thinks she has a shot at my husband." "You're going to spy on them?" "I'm going to clean," Ella corrected, a sharp smile cutting through her disheveled appearance. "Do we have any more of those horrific grey uniforms? This one smells like a winery floor." 10 minutes later, Ella was back on the main deck. She had changed into a fresh, ill-fitting uniform. She had pulled her hair back even tighter, applying a smudge of dark eyeshadow under her eyes to look tired and haggard. She kept the sunglasses in her pocket, but put on a pair of reading glasses she found in the crew library, thick frames that obscured her high cheekbones. She entered the main salon. It was a masterpiece of interior design. Cream leather sofas, walls panelled in rare zebra wood, and floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of Monaco. Vanessa and Marcus were lounging on the sofas. They had opened a bottle of Jacob's Private Reserve, a $5,000 bottle of scotch that Ella had bought him for their anniversary. Ella felt a spike of rage but pushed it down. She picked up a silver tray and a polishing cloth, moving to the far side of the room to polish the already gleaming railing of the spiral staircase. "So when do we drop the bomb?" Vanessa was asking, her feet propped up on the coffee table, right next to a coaster she wasn't using. "Not until after dinner," Marcus replied, swirling the amber liquid. "We need Jacob soft. We need him nostalgic. That's your job. You get him thinking about the good old days in Paris. Remind him how exciting you were compared to this. What's her name? Ella? Ella. Sounds like a peasant name." Vanessa sneered. "Don't worry, I brought the dress, the red one he used to love. Once he's drunk and I'm on his arm, he won't even read the fine print." Ella polished the railing harder. "The fine print. Are you sure the clause is watertight?" Vanessa asked, her voice dropping. "Trust me," Marcus said, leaning in. "My lawyers hid it in the environmental compliance section on page 42. It looks like standard boilerplate about carbon emissions. But the wording, it reclassifies the voting rights of the Class B shares." Ella froze. Her heart hammered against her ribs. Class B shares, those were the family shares, the shares that guaranteed Jacob and her control over Sterling Industries. "So if he signs," Vanessa trailed off, "if he signs the cobalt deal today," Marcus grinned, looking like a shark sensing blood, "he effectively transfers 51% of the voting power to the board, a board that I control." And then, Marcus laughed, We vote him out as CEO within the month. We strip the assets, sell the shipping division to the Chinese, and we walk away with $3 billion each. Vanessa clapped her hands delightedly. And I get the yacht? You get the yacht, Nessie, as promised. And Jacob? Jacob will be destitute. Well, rich by normal standards, but powerless. Broken. Marcus took a long drink. He's been arrogant for too long, thinking he can marry some nobody librarian and play house while ignoring the sharks in the water. Ella felt a chill that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. This wasn't just a bad business deal. This was a coup. They were planning to steal the company right from under Jacob's nose, using his past affection for Vanessa as the distraction. "Hey, you!" Ella jumped. Marcus was staring right at her. "Yes, sir." She kept her voice low and raspy. "The ice bucket is empty." He rattled the crystal bucket. "Are you deaf or just stupid? Get us more ice." "Right away, sir. And bring some limes," Vanessa added. "Sliced thin, not wedges. If you bring wedges, I'll have you fired before the sun goes down." "Yes, madam." "Thin slices." Ella grabbed the ice bucket. She walked out of the salon, her head bowed, her body language screaming submission. As soon as the door slid shut, she sprinted. She didn't go to the kitchen. She ran straight to the server room in the hallway. She pulled out her phone, which she had hidden in her sock. She dialed a number. It rang once. Sterling. A deep, warm voice answered. "Jacob." "Don't say my name," Ella said, her voice sharp and commanding. "Are you alone?" There was a pause on the line. The tone shifted instantly from affectionate husband to business titan. "I'm in the chopper, 5 minutes out. What's wrong?" "The cobalt deal. It's a trap." "What?" "Marcus and Vanessa are here. I'm undercover." "Undercover? Ella, what are you doing?" "Long story. I'm the maid. They think I'm the help. Jacob, listen to me. Page 42. Environmental compliance. It reclassifies the Class B shares. If you sign that document, we lose the company." "Son of a—" Jacob's voice growled. "Are you safe?" "I'm fine. They're just abusive snobs, but they have no idea who I am. I'm turning the chopper around. We're not signing anything." "No," Ella hissed. "If you turn around, they'll know something is up. They'll try this again with a different angle. We need to bury them, Jacob. We need to humiliate them so badly they never dare whisper the name Sterling again." "I'm listening," Jacob said. She could hear the smile in his voice. He loved it when she got ruthless. "Land as planned. Treat me like the maid. Ignore me. Let Vanessa flirt with you. Let Marcus think he's won. Get them to the dinner table." "And then?" "And then," Ella said, looking at her reflection in the dark server glass, the messy hair, the oversized uniform, the eyes of a wolf. "I'll serve dessert." The thumping rhythm of rotor blades sliced through the humid afternoon air. The conversation in the main salon died down as Marcus and Vanessa looked toward the bow. The Sterling Corporation's Sikorsky S-76 helicopter, painted in the same midnight black as the yacht, began its descent onto the helipad. "Showtime," Marcus muttered, stubbing out his cigar in a crystal bowl that was definitely not an ashtray. He stood up, adjusting his suit jacket, checking his reflection in the window. "Remember, Nessie. Soft, vulnerable, nostalgic." "I know my role, Marcus," Vanessa snapped, applying a fresh coat of blood-red lipstick. She fluffed her hair, pulling the neckline of her dress down just an inch, calculated to look accidental, yet inviting. "Just make sure you have the pen ready." Ella was in the corner, kneeling again, pretending to scrub a spot on the carpet that didn't exist. Her heart was pounding against her ribs like a trapped bird. This was the hardest part. She had to trust Jacob to treat her like garbage. If he hesitated, if he showed her even a flicker of the adoration he usually held in his eyes, Marcus, who was as sharp as he was corrupt, would catch on. The glass doors slid open. The captain's voice came over the intercom. "Mr. Sterling is on deck." A moment later, Jacob Sterling walked in. He was a man who sucked the oxygen out of every room he entered. Tall, with broad shoulders that strained against his bespoke navy Tom Ford suit, he had the face of a classic movie star. Square jaw, dark stubble, and eyes the color of stormy seas. He exuded a quiet, terrifying competence. "Jacob!" Vanessa cried out. She didn't walk. She glided across the room. She threw her arms around his neck, pressing her body against his. Ella kept her head down, scrubbing the carpet harder. She saw Jacob's polished Oxford stop just inches from her face. She saw his muscles tense as Vanessa embraced him. "Nessie," Jacob said. His voice was smooth, rich, but Ella could hear the razor-wire tension underneath. "It's been a long time." "Too long," Vanessa pulled back, keeping her hands on his chest, looking up at him with wide, shimmering eyes. "You look incredible. Tired, maybe. Have you been working too hard?" I told Marcus, "Jacob needs a break. He needs old friends." "I'm fine," Jacob said, gently but firmly removing her hands from his chest. He turned to Marcus, extending a hand. "Thorne, you're early." "Couldn't wait to get the celebration started, Jacob." Marcus shook his hand with a grip that was a little too tight. "Hope you don't mind. Your staff, well, they were a bit surprised, but we made ourselves at home." "I see that." Jacob's eyes flicked to the open bottle of $5,000 scotch. His jaw tightened. "Help yourself." "So," Vanessa linked her arm through Jacob's. "Where is the wife? The mystery woman?" I was dying to meet the girl who finally tied down the Wolf of Wall Street. Jacob paused. He looked around the room. His gaze swept over the furniture, the view, and finally it landed on the woman on the floor. Ella felt his eyes on her. This was it. "She's delayed," Jacob lied smoothly. "Business in New York. She might join us later via video link, or perhaps tomorrow." "Oh," Vanessa's face lit up with barely concealed triumph. "What a shame. I suppose she's a career woman? Too busy for her husband?" "She's very dedicated," Jacob said. "Well," Vanessa squeezed his arm. "Her loss is my gain. Now we can really catch up." "Excuse me," Jacob said, stepping away from Vanessa. "I need a drink." He walked toward the bar. He had to pass Ella. As he did, he stopped. "You," Jacob said. His voice was cold, unrecognizable. Ella stopped scrubbing. She didn't look up. "Yes, sir?" "This carpet," Jacob gestured vaguely. "It's a disgrace. Why are you scrubbing it while guests are present? You should have finished this hours ago." Ella's heart broke a little, even though she knew it was an act. He was good. Too good. "I apologize, sir," she whispered. "There was a spill." "A spill?" Jacob scoffed. "Clumsy. Just like the rest of the agency hires. Get up. Get out of here. Go help in the kitchen. You're an eyesore." "Jacob," Vanessa giggled, walking over. "Don't be so harsh. She's clearly doing her best, even if her best is, well, lacking. She actually spilled water on me earlier. Can you believe it?" Jacob looked at Vanessa, then down at Ella. "Did she?" "Ruined the mood completely," Marcus added, pouring himself another drink. "Honestly, Jacob, with the merger, we can help you upgrade your staff. I have a great agency in London. None of this local rabble." "Get out!" Jacob barked at Ella. "Now!" Ella scrambled to her feet, grabbing her bucket. She kept her head down, rushing toward the service door. As she passed Jacob, she felt a tiny, almost imperceptible brush of his fingers against her hand. It was a signal. I'm sorry. I love you. Stay with me. She burst through the service door into the hallway and leaned against the wall, exhaling a breath she didn't know she was holding. Her hands were shaking. Okay, she whispered to herself. Okay, Jacob. You played your part. Now let's play mine. She marched to the galley. The chef, a stout Frenchman named Pierre, who adored Ella, looked up from his prep station. Madam, Pierre hissed, what is happening? I hear shouting, and Maria says you are serving dinner? I am, Ella said, grabbing an apron. What's on the menu, Pierre? Lobster thermidor, caviar, truffle risotto. The Wagyu is resting. Change it, Ella said. Pierre blinked. Change the menu? No. Ella's eyes narrowed. Keep the menu. Change the presentation. I want the Wagyu perfect. But for the sauce, Pierre, do we have that Carolina Reaper extract Jacob bought for the chili challenge last year? The liquid fire? Pierre looked horrified. Madame, that is dangerous. Just a drop, Ella said, wicked grin forming. In Marcus's au jus, just enough to make him sweat, enough to make him uncomfortable. And for Vanessa, Ella scanned the kitchen. She saw a bowl of garnish, heavy on the garlic for her risotto, Ella said. She's trying to kiss my husband. Let's make sure her breath ensures he doesn't want to. You are terrible, Pierre grinned, reaching for the garlic. I love it. And Pierre, one more thing. I need the wine list. They're drinking the 82 Latour. Yes, madam. Decant it, Ella said, but fill the bottle with the supermarket table wine the crew uses for cooking. Let's see if their refined palates can tell the difference. The sun began to set, painting the sky in hues of violet and burnt orange. The aft deck was set for dinner. Crisp white linens, heavy silver cutlery, and crystal glasses that caught the dying light. Ella had transformed again. She had found a uniform that was slightly better fitting, but she had messed up her appearance further. She used a little flour from the kitchen to pale her skin, making her look sickly and exhausted. She wanted to be invisible, yet repulsive enough that they wouldn't look at her too closely. She stepped out onto the deck carrying the first course, the caviar service. Finally, Marcus grumbled. He was already seated, loosening his tie. I'm starving. Ella placed the mother-of-pearl spoons down. Her hand trembled intentionally. Careful, Vanessa snapped. God, Jacob, watching her is giving me anxiety. Can't you send her away and have the steward serve us? The steward is indisposed, Jacob said, taking a sip of his water. He looked at Ella with a look of pure boredom. Just put it down and go. Yes, sir. As they ate, the conversation turned to business, or rather, the manipulation of business. You know, Jacob, Marcus began, spreading caviar onto a blini. The market is volatile right now. North Star offers you stability. This merger, it's not just business, it's a lifeline. I wasn't aware I was drowning, Jacob said dryly. Not drowning, Vanessa interjected, reaching across the table to touch Jacob's hand. Drifting. You've been drifting since I left. I can feel it. You need an anchor. Ella, standing by the service station 10 feet away, felt a surge of nausea. The audacity. Perhaps, Jacob said, pulling his hand away to reach for his wine. And this contract provides that anchor? Absolutely, Marcus said. He reached under his chair and pulled out a thick leather folder. He placed it on the table. It landed with a heavy thud. The Cobalt deal. It merges our logistics networks. We take over the operational headache. You keep the title of chairman, and you get to spend more time on this beautiful boat. With whoever you choose. He winked at Vanessa. And the terms? Jacob asked, eyeing the folder. My lawyers have looked it over. Of course, Marcus lied smoothly. Standard revisions. We cleaned up some language about liabilities. Nothing that changes the structure. What about the voting rights? Jacob asked. Ella held her breath. This was the test. Marcus didn't blink. Unchanged. You remain majority shareholder. Class A shares are untouched. He's lying by omission, Ella thought. He didn't mention the Class B reclassification. Sounds promising, Jacob said. He didn't open the folder. He just let it sit there, a ticking time bomb between the salt and pepper shakers. Let's sign it after the main course, Vanessa cooed. Celebrate properly. But first, more wine? This Latour is divine. Ella stepped forward with the decanter of cooking wine. Allow me, madam, she croaked. She poured the cheap red liquid into Vanessa's glass. Vanessa swirled it, took a deep sniff, and closed her eyes theatrically. Vanessa moaned. You can really taste the oak, the complexity. Jacob, you simply have the best taste. Jacob took a sip from his own glass. He paused. He looked at Ella. His eyes crinkled at the corners. He knew. He recognized the $5 La Swil immediately. It has a robust finish, Jacob said, fighting back a laugh. Distinctive, Marcus agreed, knocking back half the glass. Earthy. Ella retreated to the shadows, biting her lip to keep from laughing. They were frauds. Total frauds. Main course, Jacob signaled. Ella went to the kitchen and returned with the plates. She placed the Wagyu beef in front of Marcus. The sauce was dark, rich, and spiked with enough capsaicin to incapacitate a horse. She placed the risotto in front of Vanessa. The garlic aroma was potent, masked slightly by the truffle oil, but waiting to strike. Bon appétit, Ella whispered. She stepped back to watch the fireworks. Marcus cut a large piece of the beef, swirled it in the sauce, and put it in his mouth. He chewed. He swallowed. For 3 seconds, nothing happened. Then Marcus's eyes widened. His face went from flush to bright red. He coughed, reaching for his wine. Is everything okay? Jacob asked, cutting his own steak, which Ella had ensured was spice-free. It's spicy, Marcus wheezed. Very bold seasoning. Chef Pierre is experimenting with Peruvian fusion, Jacob improvised. Too much for you, Thorne? I thought you liked a challenge. No, Marcus gasped, chugging the cooking wine, which only made the burn worse. It's delicious, just unexpected. Sweat began to bead on Marcus's forehead. He was suffering, but his ego wouldn't let him stop. He took another bite. Meanwhile, Vanessa was digging into her risotto. So, Jacob, she said between bites. I was thinking, after the signing, maybe we could take the yacht to Saint-Tropez. Just the two of us? Like the old days. Saint-Tropez is crowded this time of year, Jacob said. We could stay on the boat, Vanessa smiled. I miss us, Jacob, I really do. Leaving you was the biggest mistake of my life. Was it? Jacob asked, leaning back. I thought sleeping with my brother was the mistake. The table went silent. The only sound was the wind and Marcus wheezing. Vanessa froze. Her fork hovered halfway to her mouth. She lowered it slowly. We were young, Vanessa whispered, her voice trembling with rehearsed emotion. I was confused. I felt neglected. You were always working. He was there. But it meant nothing. You know that. It broke the family, Jacob said flatly, and I've lived with that guilt every day. Vanessa's voice rose. Tears, possibly real, likely fake, welled in her eyes. That's why I'm here, not just for the deal, but to fix us, to heal. She reached for his hand again. Sign the deal, Jacob. Let Marcus handle the business. Let's just be us. Free. It was a compelling performance. If Ella didn't know better, She might have bought it. "I need a pen," Jacob said abruptly. Marcus, despite his burning tongue, brightened instantly. He pulled a Mont Blanc fountain pen from his pocket and practically threw it at Jacob. "Here," Marcus choked out. "Right here." Jacob took the pen. He pulled the leather folder closer. He opened it to the signature page. Ella took a step forward. The instinct to stop him was overwhelming. What if he signs it? What if he actually believes her? What if he's tired of fighting? Jacob hovered the pen over the paper. "You know," Jacob said softly, looking at the paper. "There's just one thing." "What?" Marcus asked, leaning in, sweat dripping down his nose. "I never make a decision this big without consulting my partner." "Partner?" Vanessa frowned. "But you're the chairman. You don't have a partner." "I do," Jacob said. He looked up. He looked past Vanessa, past Marcus. He looked directly at Ella. "Maid," Jacob called out. "Come here." Ella froze. The air on the deck seemed to vanish. "Me, sir," she squeaked. "Yes. You. Come here." Ella walked slowly to the table. She stood next to Jacob. Vanessa looked up at her with utter disdain. "What are you doing, Jacob?" Vanessa hissed. "Why are you talking to the help?" "This woman," Jacob said, gesturing to Ella with the pen. "She's been listening all afternoon, hasn't she?" "She's a servant," Marcus scoffed. "She doesn't understand a word of this." "Oh, I wouldn't be so sure," Jacob said. He turned his chair slightly to face Ella. His face softened. The mask dropped. The love in his eyes returned, bright and burning. "What do you think, Ella?" Jacob asked, his voice gentle. "Should I sign it?" Vanessa dropped her fork. It clattered loudly against the china. "Ella?" Vanessa whispered. She looked at the maid, the messy hair, the oversized clothes. Then she looked at the eyes, the emerald green eyes she had mocked earlier. Ella slowly reached up. She pulled the reading glasses off her face and tossed them onto the table. She reached behind her head and pulled the pin from her messy bun. Her hair, dark and lustrous, cascaded down her shoulders. She straightened her back. She wasn't the hunched servant anymore. She was a queen. Ella looked down at Vanessa, whose face was draining of color. "I wouldn't sign it, darling," Ella said, her voice crystal clear, shedding the accent, vibrating with authority. "Especially not page 42. The environmental compliance clause is a little sticky. Don't you think?" Marcus choked. He actually choked. He grabbed his napkin, coughing violently. "You," Vanessa stammered. You're the boar?" Ella suggested, a shark-like smile spreading across her face. "The prude? The trailer park trash?" Ella picked up the glass of Latour from the table, Vanessa's glass. She swirled it. "Actually," Ella said, "I'm the majority shareholder of the holding company that owns the Class B shares. Jacob can't sign them away even if he wanted to, because they belong to me." She tipped the glass. For the second time that day, red wine cascaded through the air. But this time it didn't hit the floor. It splashed directly into Vanessa's lap, soaking the white linen dress in an expanding pool of purple. "Oops," Ella said, her voice dripping with ice. "I missed a spot." The silence that followed Ella's revelation was heavy, broken only by the soft lapping of the Mediterranean waves against the hull. Vanessa stared down at her ruined white dress, the red wine spreading across her lap like a gunshot wound. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish pulled from the water. "You," Vanessa finally sputtered, her voice shrill and cracking. "You did that on purpose. You crazy Sit down!" Jacob's voice cracked like a whip. He hadn't raised his voice, but the authority in it was absolute. "You are speaking to the chairwoman of the Sterling Family Trust. You will show respect." Marcus, still wiping sweat from his forehead with a linen napkin, looked between Jacob and Ella. The realization was dawning on him, slow and horrifying. He had just insulted, belittled, and attempted to defraud the one person who held the keys to the kingdom. "So," Ella said, pulling out the chair next to Jacob and sitting down. She didn't look at the guests. She looked at the table setting. She picked up a fresh napkin and placed it delicately on her lap. "Now that we've dispensed with the charade, let's discuss business." "Business?" Marcus laughed nervously. "Ella, Mrs. Sterling, obviously we got off on the wrong foot. A little role play? A joke? We have a sense of humor, don't we?" "A joke," Ella repeated flatly. She reached for a breadstick. "Is fraud a joke to you, Marcus? Is conspiracy to manipulate stock prices a joke?" "Now wait a minute." Marcus bristled, trying to regain his footing. "Those are serious accusations. This is a standard merger proposal." "Standard?" Ella raised an eyebrow. "I reviewed the document while I was scrubbing the floor behind you. Clause 14, Section B. It ties the voting rights to an offshore entity in the Caymans, an entity registered to a shell company called Vanguard Holdings." Marcus went pale. "You thought I wouldn't know Vanguard?" Ella smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I should know it. I bought the debt on it 3 weeks ago." Marcus dropped his napkin. "You... what?" "I own your debt, Marcus," Ella said casually, as if discussing the weather. "I knew North Star Logistics was over-leveraged. I knew you were desperate. I just didn't know you were desperate enough to use my husband's ex-fiancée as a honey trap." She turned her gaze to Vanessa. Vanessa was dabbing frantically at her dress with a napkin, smearing the wine further. "And you," Ella said softly. Vanessa looked up, her eyes filled with venom. "You think you're so smart, playing the maid? It's pathetic. You're insecure. You knew Jacob still had feelings for me, so you had to spy on us." "Insecure?" Ella laughed, a genuine amused sound. "Vanessa, I didn't spy on you because I was worried about my marriage. I spied on you because I needed to see if you were merely greedy or actually malicious. I needed to know if you deserved a severance package or a lawsuit." "I don't need your money," Vanessa spat. "My father—" "Your father," Jacob interrupted, "is currently under investigation by the Regulatory Board. An investigation initiated by an anonymous tip about insider trading regarding the shipping lanes." Vanessa froze. "You—" "Not me," Jacob pointed to Ella. Ella took a sip of water. "I didn't tip them off, actually. I just forwarded the email chains Marcus sent you last week. You really shouldn't use your personal email for corporate espionage, Vanessa. It's sloppy. Gmail retains everything." Vanessa slumped back in her chair, the fight draining out of her. The aroma of garlic from her risotto seemed to choke her now. "So here is the situation," Ella said, clasping her hands together. "There will be no merger. There will be no rekindling of old flames. In fact, as of 10 minutes ago, my legal team at Sullivan & Cromwell has filed a motion to block North Star from bidding on any government contracts for the next 5 years, citing unethical business practices." Marcus slammed his fist on the table. "You can't do that. That will bankrupt me." "You bankrupted yourself when you walked onto my ship and treated me like cattle," Ella said, her voice dropping to a terrifying whisper. "You judged me by my uniform. You mocked my work. You thought because I was cleaning, I was beneath you. You forgot the first rule of power, Marcus. Never assume you're the smartest person in the room." "Jacob," Marcus pleaded, turning to the man he had tried to destroy. "We've known each other for 20 years. Are you going to let her do this?" Jacob looked at Marcus. Then he looked at Ella. He reached out and took Ella's hand, kissing the knuckles which were still red from the scrubbing water. "My wife," Jacob said, "is being generous. If it were up to me, I'd have thrown you overboard by now." The sun had fully set, leaving the sky a bruised purple. The deck lights of the Obsidian Pearl clicked on, bathing the yacht in a soft, golden glow that felt miles away from the grim reality Marcus and Vanessa were now facing. "Get off my boat," Jacob said. We have the helicopter," Vanessa stammered, standing up. She tried to pull her dress down, but the wet, red stain clung to her legs. She looked like a disaster. "The helicopter is for guests," Ella corrected. "You are trespassers." "You can't be serious," Marcus said. "It's a 3-mile walk back to the main road. We're in the private marina. There are no taxis allowed in here." "I suggest you start walking then," Ella said. "The gates close at 10:00 p.m. If you hurry, you might make it before the guard dogs are let out." "This is insane!" Vanessa shrieked. "I am wearing Louboutins." "And I was wearing a polyester uniform that was 2 sizes too big," Ella countered. "We all make fashion choices. Live with yours." Ella snapped her fingers. From the shadows, 4 large men in security uniforms stepped forward. They weren't the polite, smiling crew members. These were the ex-military security detail Jacob kept for high-risk zones. "Escort Mr. Thorne and Ms. DuPont to the gangway," Ella ordered. "Ensure they do not touch anything on their way out. We just had the place cleaned." Marcus glared at her, his face a mask of impotent rage. He opened his mouth to say something, perhaps a final threat, perhaps a curse. But he looked at the security guards and thought better of it. He grabbed his jacket. "Come on, Vanessa," he muttered. They were marched through the main salon, the same salon they had entered like conquering kings just hours before. Now they walked with their heads down. As they reached the aft deck, the entire crew was waiting. Maria, the head stewardess, stood at the front. Next to her was Pierre, the chef, wiping his hands on a towel. The deck hands, the engineers, even the laundry staff. They were lined up in 2 rows, creating a gauntlet leading to the gangway. They didn't say a word. They just watched. Vanessa had to walk past Maria. She hesitated. Vanessa started, looking at the woman she had almost vomited on earlier. Maria just stared at her, face impassive. "Goodbye, madam," Maria said. "Mind the step. It is freshly polished." Vanessa let out a sob of humiliation and hurried down the gangway, her heels clicking frantically on the carbon fiber. Marcus followed, his $5,000 suit looking rumpled, his face still red from the pepper sauce. He stopped at the bottom of the gangway and looked back up at the yacht. Ella and Jacob stood at the railing, looking down like monarchs on a balcony. "Oh, Marcus!" Ella called out. Marcus looked up, hope flaring for a second. "Yes?" "I'm sending you a bill," she said, her voice carrying over the water. "A bill?" "For the cleaning," Ella said. "That red wine is going to be a nightmare to get out of the teak. And the carpet, and the uniform. I'll have my accountant itemize it. Expect it Monday." Marcus turned around and walked away into the darkness of the marina. Vanessa was already hobbling ahead, taking off her shoes and walking barefoot on the asphalt, cursing with every step. Ella watched them disappear until they were just shadows in the distance. The tension that had held her upright for the last 4 hours finally snapped. She sagged against the railing. Jacob was there instantly, his arm around her waist, supporting her. "You okay?" he asked softly. "I hate them," Ella whispered. "I hate people who treat others like that. It's not about the money, Jacob. It's the entitlement, the cruelty." "I know," Jacob said. He kissed the top of her head. "You were amazing, by the way. Terrifying." but amazing. I felt like an imposter, Ella admitted. Scrubbing that floor, remembering where I came from. My mum used to clean houses like this. I remember how people looked at her, like she was furniture. You honor her, Jacob said. You honor her by being who you are, and by protecting what we built. Ella took a deep breath of the salty air. She looked down at her hands. They were dry, and she had broken a nail during the reveal. Jacob? Yeah? I'm still technically wearing the uniform. Jacob looked at her. The oversized grey dress, the messy hair, the smudge of flour on her cheek. You are, he smiled. And the guests are gone, she said. They are. And I believe, Ella smiled, turning to face him, that the master of the vessel owes the maid a very expensive dinner. I think, Jacob grinned, that the master of the vessel is going to give the maid a promotion. Monday morning in London was grey and drizzly, a stark contrast to the golden sunset of Monaco. In the glass-walled office of North Star Logistics, Marcus Thorne sat at his desk. The office was quiet. Too quiet. Usually by 9 a.m., his phone was ringing off the hook with deals, mergers, and ego-stroking calls from the city's elite. Today, the silence was deafening. His secretary buzzed in. Mr. Thorne, a courier package just arrived, marked personal and confidential, from Sterling Industries. Marcus swallowed hard. His throat still felt raw from the pepper sauce, a lingering reminder of his humiliation. Send it in. The envelope was thick, cream-colored, and heavy. He opened it with trembling hands. Inside was not a lawsuit, at least not yet. It was an invoice. Invoice 1001 from the Office of Ella Sterling to Marcus Thorne, services rendered. 1. Removal of red wine stain. Teak decking, 4502. Replacement of staff uniform, ruined by guest negligence, $150 3. Disposal of substandard wine, improperly gifted, 54. Corporate espionage consulting. Lesson on why you shouldn't email conspiracies. $5,000, total due, $5,4700. Attached to the invoice was a photo. It was a high-resolution image taken from the yacht security camera. It showed Marcus, red-faced, sweating, with sauce on his chin, looking absolutely terrified, while Ella stood over him. At the bottom of the photo, a handwritten note in elegant cursive read, "We framed a copy for the boardroom. Payment due upon receipt." Marcus slumped in his chair. The phone finally rang. It was the chairman of his own board. "Thorne," the chairman's voice was ice cold. "We just received a file from the Regulatory Commission. Something about insider trading and a botched merger with Sterling. Security is on their way up to escort you out. Don't take the stapler." Across the channel in Paris, the fallout was different, but equally devastating. Vanessa DuPont walked into the L'Avenue restaurant, the hottest spot for the Fashion Week crowd. She was wearing a new dress, trying to project confidence. She spotted a table of her usual clique, socialites, heiresses, and influencers. "Darling," Vanessa called out, waving. The table went silent. Heads turned. Whispers started behind perfectly manicured hands. "Is that her?" Someone whispered, loud enough to be heard. "The one who threw wine at Ella Sterling? I heard Ella made her walk barefoot back to the highway. I heard she's broke. Daddy's accounts are frozen." The leader of the group, a countess named Isabel, looked at Vanessa with a pitying smile. "Oh, Vanessa, we're actually full. No room at the table. Perhaps the kitchen is hiring." Laughter rippled through the restaurant. It was the kind of cruel, exclusionary laughter Vanessa had used as a weapon her entire life. Now the blade was turned against her. She stood there, frozen, her face burning. She turned and ran, the sound of her heels echoing like gunshots, fleeing the world she used to rule. 1 month later. The sea was calm. The Obsidian Pearl was anchored off the coast of Sardinia. Ella sat on the aft deck, the same deck where the dinner from hell had taken place. The teak was spotless, the stain long gone, sanded away and refinished until it looked new. She wasn't wearing a uniform. She was wearing a flowing silk caftan, sipping an espresso. Mrs. Sterling. Ella looked up. Maria, the head stewardess, was standing there, holding a silver tray with croissants. Maria looked healthy. Her color returned, her smile genuine. "Maria, please." Ella smiled. "Sit with me. I can't eat all these croissants alone. Pierre is trying to fatten me up." "He is very proud of the spicy sauce," Maria giggled, sitting down tentatively. "He calls it the sauce of justice. He wants to bottle it." "We should let him," Ella laughed. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, the billionaire owner and the head stewardess, watching the sunrise. "You know," Maria said softly, "I never thanked you properly for taking my place that day. Most owners, they wouldn't even know my name, let alone scrub a floor for me." "You don't need to thank me, Maria," Ella said, looking out at the horizon. "That day, it reminded me of something important." "What is that?" "That dignity isn't about what you wear," Ella said, touching the silk of her dress. "And power isn't about who you can fire. Power is about who you can protect." Jacob walked out onto the deck. He was wearing swim trunks and a towel around his neck, his hair wet from a morning swim. He walked over, kissed Ella on the cheek, and stole a croissant from Maria's tray. "Good morning, ladies," he grinned. "Any hostile takeovers planned for today, or just tanning?" "I think just tanning," Ella said. "Good." Jacob sat on the edge of her lounge chair. "Because I just got off the phone with the new CEO of North Star Logistics." "Oh?" Ella raised an eyebrow. "Who is it?" "They promoted the VP of Operations," Jacob said. "A woman named Sarah. Apparently, she started in the company 20 years ago, in the mailroom." Ella smiled, a real, satisfied smile. "She sounds perfect," Ella said. "Send her a bottle of wine, the good stuff. Not the cooking wine." "Already done." Jacob looked at his wife. He took her hand, the hand that had scrubbed floors and signed billion-dollar contracts. "You missed a spot," he whispered, pointing to a tiny crumb on her chin. Ella wiped it away, laughing. "I never miss a spot, Mr. Sterling. I just leave it there to see if anyone is brave enough to point it out." As the sun climbed higher, bathing the black yacht in light, the ghosts of the past, the insults, the judgments, the cruelty faded away, washed clean by the sea, leaving only the truth. The Queen of the Ocean didn't need a crown. She just needed a bucket, a sponge, and the courage to teach the world a lesson it would never forget. And that is how Ella Sterling turned the tables on the people who tried to erase her. It's a powerful reminder that you should never, ever judge someone by their job title or the clothes on their back. Marcus and Vanessa learned the hard way that the person pouring your wine might just be the person who owns the bottle and your future. If you enjoyed this story of karma and justice, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow. And I want to know from you, have you ever been underestimated by someone? Tell me your story in the comments below. I read every single one. Don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you don't miss our next story. We have a thriller coming up next week about a CEO who goes undercover in his own factory, and you won't believe what he finds. Thanks for watching, and remember, be kind, because you never know who you're really talking to.